At Canik Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canik Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canik, superior firearms.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. Tashay's going to be a bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is indeed lighted. That is to my left, your right, if you're watching. Oh, that's right. You can watch on YouTube at the SHR Media YouTube subscription site. We have our own channel at shrmedia.com. You can hear me on Spreaker. You can hear me on High Plains Pundit Media. High Plains Pundit, who, oddly enough, is going to be on tonight. And you can also hear us on SHRmedia.com, where we're live and direct in the house. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, don't forget to tip your waiter, waitress, server. Today is Tuesday, September 5th, the year of our Lord 2017. Holy fuck. It's September already. Holy moly. Don't know what the weather's like where you are right now, but OMG, has it been hot as the fiery depths of hell in Sacramento these past days. I think we may have had more 100-plus degree days in August than I've experienced in quite a while. Oh, that must be climate change, global warming. Oh, that's right, BZ. That's called summer, because in the summer, it gets hot. Hot, damn hot. In chat room, I'd like to say hello to Jersey Joe. Mike is in chat. Dan Butcher, HP Pundit, is in chat. Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy who isn't. I mean, he is blind, but he's not unpleasant, is what I mean. Mary Brockman is in chat. And you know, of course, as per normal, do not sit in the chair belonging to Mary Brockman. Because, after all, you can identify it. It's the one with the embroidery of her name on the back of the chair. And who do we have on the teleola phone? We have none other than Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit Media. And God bless you, sir, it seems to be working quite well.
Well, I hope so, BZ. Let's give this another try tonight.
Because if it's not power going out or the stupid phone system not working, we're finally 1 for 3 now. I think that's great. Woohoo. Because especially last week did I ever want to talk to you, particularly about what was going on with Hurricane Harvey, and I'm sure that you've quite a number of tales to regale us with tonight, as a matter of fact.
Well, you know, let me tell you something. The big thing about Harvey was versus other hurricanes was, there was initially there was the usual wind damage that you see with the storm, ground zero, and that took mainly in the Port Aranis area and the Rockport areas. Of course, in this case, Hurricane Harvey did not have a big storm surge with it that you'll see. That like the big storm surge that caused all of the flooding in New Orleans and Louisiana with Hurricane Katrina. And this was a massive rain event. It just literally rained buckets. You're talking about, you weren't using rain gauges to measure the rain here. You were using 55-gallon trash cans to measure the rain.
Oh, you beat me to it. I was going to say you used wheelbarrows. Damn it, but you beat me. You win the hyperbole right now. You win.
And that is not an exaggeration. That is literally what they were measuring the rain in. It was something. And here's the thing about Houston, and I'm going to talk particularly about Houston. There were other areas that were hit hard, whether it was in Port Arthur or if it was Beaumont, but particularly Houston, because in that particular area that was in the hurricane zone. Texas is a state of we're somewhere between 25 and 30 million people now. In that particular area that was in the hurricane zone, you're talking about 11 million people live in along that coastal area, with Galveston, Corpus Christi, Houston being the fourth largest city in the country. But those folks, particularly in Houston, they're used to flooding. Rain is no stranger to the area. A lot of people don't know. We were laughing a lot. I was getting a lot of questions on Facebook. Hey, Dan, are you getting any flooding yet? Well, no. I live 10 hours and 700 miles from the hurricane zone personally. But we got some of the outer bands that caused us to have some rain events here from the storm. But, Houston is not an actual coastal city. Houston actually sits back up in the coast. And then, of course, you have the port of Houston, right, which is man-made, that comes up for the shipping channel and all of that comes up for all of the ports and stuff that come into Houston. But, you didn't have a massive storm surge. You had a massive rain event that has never been seen before in the history of the city there. And, even a city that like Houston that's used to flooding, that's not anything that's new to the community and to the surrounding areas around the Houston metro area. They're used to flooding, but they were not used to flooding of this magnitude. Quite literally, where you have highways turned into rivers, white capping. Think about that. White capping on the roads because it's so deep from the wind and stuff. Downtown Houston itself flooded, and then coming up to the...
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
Into the different various neighborhoods. Now, here was something about particularly about Houston, because Houston is growing so fast. You're talking about a city that has grown over 600% since the 1970s, I believe. So it's a lot of massive growth, a lot of new construction in the area. There was no area of Houston that was spared in the flooding. It did not matter if you lived in a middle-class neighborhood, if you lived in an expensive, wealthy neighborhood, if you lived in some of the poor areas of Houston. Everybody was subjected to flooding from this particular storm. But here's what happened. People have talked about, in the events and days leading up to Hurricane Harvey, you were listening to a lot of folks in the liberal media saying, hey, look at the racial divide in our country. Look at all the racial tension in our country. Donald Trump is the cause of all this. He's the biggest racist in the history of our country. But look what happened in Houston. It didn't matter if you were black, white, Hispanic. Everyone came together to help everyone, and they continue to do so right now. When of course Donald Trump has made 2 trips to Houston so far, and specifically on the second trip, when he came down, he got criticized for not going out and meeting with the people during the first trip. Well, you know what? They were still right in the middle of the devastation. There's no way you could accommodate the President of the United States in such a situation like that. So they had to plan for it to come back. He comes back, and the people it did not matter if they were Republicans, if they were Democrats, if they were independents, if they were black, white. It did not matter. They all came together. President Trump, everybody loved him. He was down here. He was working with the people, visiting with the people. What do you need? And that has taken hold. And if anybody ever wants to know something that makes Texas really uniquely different from other states, it is the way that we can come together. I think we are fiercely loyal to our state. We are very proud of our state, and in good times we celebrate. In bad times we come together, and it does not matter if you're rich or if you're poor, if you're black or you're white. It doesn't matter if you're a businessman. It does not matter if you're a mechanic or a truck driver. It does not matter if you're a garbage truck driver. It does not matter if you're a cowboy, a farmer, or rancher. Everybody has come together from all over the state to help the people in Houston. And, of course, they're already rebuilding in Houston. What you've seen, take, weeks, months, years to take place after other hurricanes of this magnitude, you've seen occur in days. Just the days we're talking a week out. You're talking last week. We're talking if I'd been on your show last week, we're talking about the devastating flooding. We're coming together tonight and talking about the humanity of spirit that's rebuilding the city already. You're talking about school districts are opening. The Houston Astros and the Texans are returning to play in the stadiums. The Astros have already made their return. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if the Astros go to the World Series this year and bring the World Series to Houston?
No kidding.
People are going back to work, and so that's the spirit you see. They're already rebuilding. Everybody coming together, and that's something that people are saying. I'm trying to remember. I don't want to give this point real quick. There was an article that ran in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. One thing that was talking about, and the gist of this article was that the reason that Texans were coming together is because they're so skeptical of the federal government. They don't, they think the federal government is evil. That's the furthest thing from the case. That's not the truth at all. What you're actually seeing is the Texas spirit is showing, you know what? We don't need the federal government to bail us out. We can bail ourselves out. We can take care of ourselves. Now, if you want to send some money our way, we'll, by God, take it. But you know what? We are the people here. We are working together to solve this. It's not the government that's doing this. It is the people that's rebuilding the areas that were devastated by the hurricane.
So you make an excellent point with that, because the first thing that I'm not hearing in the media about Texas is everyone's complaining, oh, where'd the federal government go? Oh, where's our free stuff? Oh, we're not getting enough food. Oh, we're not getting enough water. Oddly enough, as opposed to Katrina, I'm not hearing that. You made the point. It's because Texans dig in and get the hell going. I have to completely agree with that, 100%. It's a mindset. And I got that from my dad.
Well, let me tell you something too. There was a behind the scenes before Harvey hit, versus what you saw with Katrina. When Katrina hit in New Orleans and Louisiana, they were reactive to the situation. They reacted after the fact. Here in Texas, we were very proactive prior. You saw Governor Abbott making the declarations, applying for the presidential declarations for aid for all of the counties beforehand, before anything ever happened. You saw all of that. They made sure that all of the resources would be available beforehand, before the storm even got here, before it ever made landfall. All of the resources needed were already here. You didn't see a hesitation to call up the entire Texas National Guard to come down and aid in rescue efforts. You're talking about in a metro area of the city proper is over 4 million people. You're talking about 15,000 people were rescued, and you're talking about, unfortunately, there were some deaths associated with this. We had an incident where we had a family of 6 people that died in a van because they made the driver made a wrong decision to try to drive into floodwaters and was swept off into the river. But basically, we had under 20 people killed in this. So basically, a handful of people, and a lot of them, did not die in the initial. They died, we had a lot of first responders, a lot of volunteers. We had some folks that died trying to rescue other people. That do sometimes happen in these type of situations. But it was because the state was so proactive before the storm hit that you're seeing the recovery effort being able to take place so fast after the storm. And quite honestly, you're seeing the state of Florida right now doing a lot of the same lessons that we did here in Texas.
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
As they start to prepare for a potential landfall from Hurricane Irma, which makes Harvey look like child's play at this point. So hopefully, if we have to deal with Hurricane Irma, and then we have another hurricane brewing right behind that one. If we have to deal with these situations again, hopefully there's a lot of lessons learned, and quite honestly, some things that can be improved upon. Versus what we did here in Texas. Because with a lot of good things, we had some bad things as well. A lot of criticisms. I think probably, and I'm going to address this. I think a lot of I think the major criticism that you hear was, why was the Houston metro area not evacuated?
Yep.
Okay, let's think about this. Let's think about this really quick. You're talking about trying to, in the hurricane area itself, you're talking about trying to move 4 million people out of Houston. You're talking about moving 8 to 11 million people out of the coastal area. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible to do so. We tried to do so about 10 years ago with another hurricane, and we ended up having gridlock for days on the highways, people running out of gas. Most of the deaths that occurred happened on the roadways because people ran out of gas, got stuck in their cars. We were rescuing people out of massive traffic jams that had run out of gas, people dying, lots of deaths. So they knew that the infrastructure with the roadways could not handle such a mass evacuation. And I know the mayor of Houston has taken a lot of criticism about that. I think it's some unwarranted criticism personally. And of course, Governor Abbott did say, you know what, if you can evacuate, do so. But if not, you're probably going to have to hunker down in place and be prepared to do so for several days. And if you are in a situation where you may have to potentially be rescued because of rising floodwaters, this is what you do, such as don't climb in the attic, climb on top of the house, things like this. Yeah. But once again, the infrastructure and the roadways that were in place, it was just, you're talking about something that does not take days to do. It would take weeks to evacuate that many people out of the way. And you're talking with a hurricane, you literally have, even though you usually have 2 or 3 days, there's no possible way to get that many. Now, you can, and what they did in Houston and some of these areas is they did evacuate the usual areas. They know that they're used to flooding, like I mentioned before. But what they did do is they did evacuate the areas that they knew were going to flood. Hey, we know these areas are going to flood. You people have to get out of here. That's why you saw downtown Houston practically a ghost town. They knew it was going to flood. They knew that the water was going to rise in Buffalo Bayou, and that was going to happen. So that's why that type of stuff was already evacuated. What they did not know was, what kind of flooding are we going to see from the potential rain event? And so they had some areas that had seen some devastating flooding that they had never seen before. And so that's what they mainly had to deal with. But no, they did do evacuations in the normal suspect areas, but we had a lot of areas this time that flooded that never had before.
One of the things maybe you can confirm for me is that I'd heard that about a week prior to this, Governor Abbott was already coordinating with the federal government. I mean, that's quite some time in advance. And I also noticed, Dan, that's something that was conspicuously uncovered by the American media maggots. That is a shock in and of itself. Is it not?
If you're reading High Plains Pundit, we were writing about the hurricane and the articles about a week before the storm hit, just like you mentioned, and we were actually covering and I mentioned that before. We were actually talking about all the type of precautions and all the preparations of the storm beforehand. And just like you mentioned, Governor Abbott was making all the declarations. He was getting all the presidential declarations beforehand. He was getting all of the counties. We had 56. You're talking about we had 56 counties declared disaster areas before the disaster ever took place. Think about that for a minute. And that was 3 days before the storm hit. But there was a lot of preparation behind the scenes. And you're absolutely right. You did not see a lot of that covered, especially on ABC, CNN, the usual liberal things. They were still too busy trying to criticize and frame, President Trump as a racist asshole.
Yes, and Melania wore heels. Then she wore tennis shoes. Then Trump put a box in a pickup truck, and they didn't like that. And he showed up, and then he shouldn't have showed up. And he did the wrong thing, and he still has a dead orange cat on the top of his head. Enough. One of the things that I pointed out that was highly what I thought quite ironical is the fact that many of the people that were involved in Katrina and displaced from that ended up in Houston and then found themselves hit a second time. Talk about irony of ironies. That would be a little tough to take. The other thing is that I was looking at the television and I noticed, maybe you can specify and give me some details about this. There were some places around the Houston area that they were saying would not drain for up to a month from now because they had to let some waters out to keep the waters going out of the reservoirs, etc. And those areas became flooded themselves, and they weren't anticipated to go that route. I was watching video today of Fox boating through that area.
Yeah, we had a lot of. Let me kind of set the situation up for you in the state of Texas. We only have one natural lake in the state of Texas, and that is Lake Caddo, which is along the Louisiana and Texas border. All the other lakes in the state of Texas, we lovingly refer to them as overglorified mud holes. They're all dammed lakes. They're all man-made lakes. Even our massive lakes, such as Lake Texarkana, Lake Texhoma, which are good-sized, massive-sized lakes. All these lakes are man-made lakes. We only have one natural lake here. So obviously, especially in East Texas, we have some massive lakes there with some large dams. And naturally, when you reach a certain level, they have to release water downstream. And unfortunately, a lot of these folks live in the floodplains, in the areas where they're going to have to release this water down. They don't have a choice. They have to release the water and downstream to take the pressure off of the dam, because you can imagine that if they don't, well, you could possibly have a dam breach if you don't release the water.
Yeah.
So you're dead.
That's worse for everyone.
If you don't.
That doesn't affect a select few that are going to get their ankles damaged.
Right.
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
For a while, but that could potentially affect literally hundreds or perhaps even thousands of people. I guess Harvey damages are estimated at about $180 billion with a B billion dollars at this point.
Right. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 160,000 structure of homes that were damaged. Of course, some of them in some of the areas are going to be total losses. Others are going to require extensive repair work to repair them. Once again, Houston has seen. We had a massive flood 2 years ago that caused over $100 million worth of damage in the Houston area. They were just recovering from that when this happened. So once again, they're another event that they're going to have to repair, and they will do it. They're already in the process thereof. They already had everything in place to deal with this, and you're starting to see it right now. That's the nice thing about the people of Houston. They were prepared for this. They know the routine, and they're going through the motions again to deal with this. If you're going to live along the coast, you have to be prepared to deal with storms such as this. There's a lot of good things. Obviously, the advantages of living along the coast greatly outweigh the disadvantages to some folks. But you have to be prepared to live with the good, with the bad, and unfortunately, hurricanes and flooding from heavy rain is one of those bad circumstances. You do a little bit different, like you were mentioning. There are going to be some areas of Houston that are going to take a little bit longer to drain off, and that has to do more with the draining system and everything, draining the water off. A lot of it too has to do with, you have to imagine where, I mentioned that over the last few decades, Houston has seen a 600% growth in its population in the area that it covers. And, of course, obviously that's a lot of pavement that has gone over a lot of what used to be, quite honestly, swampland in Houston. Because, and where Houston sits, that's where a lot of the rivers come down, just like in Louisiana when you're dealing with the bayou and stuff like that. The rivers come down and drain into the Gulf. The same thing happens along the coast of Texas. And where Houston sits, that's kind of the way that is. And so you have a lot of land that used to absorb a lot of the water, a lot of the flood runoff, and it's not doing that this time. And so it's just a natural part of progress that you are going to see, the floodwaters last long, especially with this. You're talking about an event that dropped over 50 inches of rain in a 3-day period. Think about that. 50 inches of rain in a 3-day period. So I don't care where you live. Even where I live, it would take days and days. It would actually take a lot longer where I live for the water to drain off than what it's doing in Houston. Because at least Houston has, not only do they have their usual, man-made drainage systems and what have you, they have natural draining systems too that take place and drain the water back into the Gulf and the rivers and the bayous and different things like that. So actually, if we were to see an event like this here in where I live, it would actually be more devastating here than what we've seen in Houston.
The funny thing is, they say that in Texas, that's the most powerful hurricane that's made landfall in Texas for about 50 years. And also in terms of cost, it's going to be more costly than Sandy, and it's going to be more costly than Katrina. And yet, the thing that I find absolutely astounding, Dan, and you pointed it out earlier, I'm looking at an article from Fortune.com that says perhaps up to about 50 people may have died, considering the depth and breadth of Hurricane Harvey. I find that just absolutely surprising. In a great way, in a wonderful way, but with the havoc that was wreaked and the force of the winds and the rain, I think that's astounding. Absolutely.
We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 confirmed deaths. We have some other deaths that we believe that are related to the hurricane, not confirmed or denied, etc. You just never can tell with this, with the extent of the magnitude of the storm. And I will say this versus what you saw with Katrina. We saw a lot of theft of federal funds, of government funds in Katrina. There's a reason why Ray Nagin is in jail right now, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason that the mayor of Houston is not in jail. So, the taxpayers here, even though Houston is a very liberal city, the taxpayers down there are pretty conservative with their money. They like to know how it's being spent. They don't mind spending it, but they like to know where it's going, and they keep track of every dime pretty good. So, and that's a lot of what you're seeing here. You're not seeing a lot of fraud, a lot of waste. And that goes, once again, into the system that is in place. Houston, in our coastal area, we have known for many, many years. I think everybody is very aware of the Great Hurricane of 1900, where we had in the neighborhood of 6,000 to 12,000 deaths that practically almost wiped the city of Galveston, Texas, off of the face of the earth. And we've been expecting that type of hurricane again. Of that magnitude. And I'll give you an idea. That hurricane was a Category 4. So think about that. That was how far we have come since 1900 to the Category 4 hurricane that just hit the coast of Texas last weekend. So that's how far we've come. So they have been planning. They knew that something like this was going to happen. All the mechanisms were in place. All of the policies were in place. Everything was in place. All the resources were ready to go, and they know how to handle these situations. And I think, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that they can still learn from this because it's a constant learning process. Okay, we probably do need to look at, since we did have some flooding in some areas that we had never seen flooding before like this in Houston, they probably do need to address in case we do have to have a mass evacuation. They need to address, the infrastructure and to be able to undertake such an event, as that. Obviously, if we had any type of impact, any type of indication that Irma was going to come towards the coast of Texas, you better damn well believe an evacuation would be taking place now. Storm.
You make an excellent point about Irma. And I tell you what, we're going to have to go to a break, folks. We're listening to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame. And I'm going to ask you right now, I don't know if you can go or stay. Are you available for the next segment, Dan Butcher?
Hey, but you know what? I can go till probably 11 o'clock tonight, so we're good.
Okay, great. Folks, hang on. We're talking to Dan Butcher. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Don't go anywhere.
Conservative media. At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
Done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Names are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon live and direct on High Plains Pundit Media, SHR Media. You can listen on SHRmedia.com. You can listen on High Plains Pundit Radio. Speaking of which, we have Dan Butcher. We've been speaking to Dan for the past half hour, and he's been giving us an update on all the craziness that's been going on due to Hurricane Harvey the past week or so, at least, in the Texas area. You were mentioning some of the good things that were occurring, and I had said that, it's rather astounding that the death toll hasn't exceeded 50 right around in there. But you made some excellent points. We manage our infrastructure a lot better than we used to. And it seems to me, isn't this a more perfect example of how local government, state government, and the federal government can manage a situation? And to that end, I say it's all about the people involved in that, Dan.
Exactly. And, once again, everything, what's the best way to put this is, everything, the way our country is structured, everything starts local. Then it moves to your county, then it moves to the state and the federal, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yep.
When you have events like this, the initial response is the responsibility of local officials. And I have to give everybody in Houston, I have to give the folks in Beaumont. Think about this. The city of Beaumont, Texas, lost their water supply was flooded. So they had to deal with the loss of water in the city, and they had the city and everything back within all the regulations and everything within 2 days. They had their water system back up and running.
That's amazing.
In Houston, they've got the sewer system, the water reclamation plants, everything back online, so people can get water, electricity, and stuff like that coming back. But it starts with the local. So you have the local folks with the initial response. So I think they did an outstanding job. Although there's some criticism about whether to evacuate or not, I think they made the right decision there to stay put. And then, of course, you saw the actions from Governor Abbott. You saw all the actions from all the surrounding counties, particularly Harris County, which is the largest county in the state of Texas. You saw how those officials, how everybody worked together, going all the way up to President Trump and the federal government and FEMA. I think everything has come together and worked the way it should, versus what you saw in Hurricane Katrina, where all of the local and state officials were too busy passing the blame and trying to blame, the Bush administration for inaction when, the local officials didn't even ask for any help. Mayor Nagin did not ask the state for help. The state did not ask the federal government for help. And by the time everything was said and done, you had hundreds of people dead as a result. And of course, it's taken many years for the city of New Orleans to recover after the fact, as well as other parts of the state of Louisiana. The fishing industry in Louisiana is just getting back to where it once was because of all of that. And so
at Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
And I have to say this, once again, you're seeing the same thing taking place in Florida right now.
Yep.
With local officials making their preparations. They've already said, hey, if you live out in the Keys, you need to get out of there now. And so and then of course the local officials are making their planning, state officials are making their planning from the governor, the county, and then of course they're starting to make their request to the federal government, just like the state of Texas did.
Can I make a comparison here just for a moment? You were talking about the infrastructure. You were talking about various water systems getting online again in 2 days, which is remarkable, quite frankly. But let's think about the types of mindsets that are involved. I came up with the example in chat of Flint, Michigan, which still is not repaired. It's still not working. And then New Orleans. Mary Brockman said, New Orleans still isn't rebuilt. Well, you have to ask yourself, money went to New Orleans. Where did it go? Why didn't it get done? Because my theory is when federal money starts coming into Texas, Houston, and outlying areas, my guess would be it will be spent appropriately. Again, I align that to mindset and the philosophy behind these various mindsets. And one of the first things my dad taught me, he was born in Minnesota, but he claimed himself to be a Texan all along. And it's one of the things that he said, Texas is a frame of mind. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I do. And let me address this. If you've listened to me and on my own show over the years, if you've read High Plains Pundit over the years, everybody knows that I always make that there's a distinction between Democrats in the state of Texas, Republicans in the state of Texas versus Republicans in other parts of the country, and Democrats in other parts of the country. Yep. Houston, Texas is a very blue city. It is dominated by Democrats. Okay? Now let's look at Flint, Michigan, dominated by Democrats. Detroit, dominated by Democrats. I think you're kind of getting New Orleans, Louisiana at the time of Katrina, dominated by Democrats. And so you start to see kind of a different mindset of how that money was used for pandering. Okay, how that money was used for other things other than what it was intended for. Many people in the city of New Orleans, Louisiana, never saw the federal money and the relief that they were supposed to see. Many of the much of the money that was allocated to help rebuild in New Orleans was never seen. It was never spent for that. Versus here in the state of Texas, even though you have Democrats that are running the city, you're talking about a city that is growing by leaps and bounds, that is very robust, is very economically friendly to businesses, very tax friendly to businesses, etc. And once again, it all comes down to, even though the Democrats are in charge, the people are still making sure that their elected officials are being good stewards of the money. So in a way, it is a mindset. It is a mindset of, okay, we're going to make sure that you are responsible. That's our money. That's not yours. That's not the government's money. That's our money. And we are trusting you to spend it the way it's supposed to be spent. And so that's why you're not seeing a lot of the nonsense that you have seen before in other disasters, whether it's Flint, Michigan, whether it was Katrina, or some of the disasters of cities that we see, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Detroit, the list goes on and on and on.
Some portions of Baltimore from riots in the 60s were never touched or rebuilt. Right. That's an abomination. That's an absolute abomination. Now, this is another reason I like chat. This is another reason I like people appearing in chat. Mike, who I believe lives in Louisiana, in chat, had said Mary Landrieu, governor at the time, would not call the National Guard, and she would not take George Bush's calls because Bush couldn't come in until she actually requested him. That again is indicative of, to me, a mindset. Plain and simple. I don't know any way else how to quantify that.
Yeah, and of course, corruption has a lot to do with it too.
Yes.
At the time of Katrina, there was a lot of corruption in New Orleans. There was a lot of corruption in the state legislature in Louisiana. Once again, there is a reason why Ray Nagin just went to jail for 10 years. Yep. He's a crook. Yep. And so, but then again, I have to put the blame on the people because you know what? If you don't give a damn, they're going to get away with it. If you do give a damn, guess what? You're going to get your house rebuilt after a hurricane. It's that simple, and that's why you're going to see Houston. Will it take Houston a while to recover from this? Well, of course it will. This was a disaster of the magnitude that they've never seen before. A disaster on a major U.S. city that the likes of that we haven't seen since the attack on the Twin Towers in New York City, and we've seen it. And I'm going to give a comparison. When the original Twin Towers were built in New York City, you're talking about those towers were built not over a decade, like what we've seen the replacement buildings be replaced in that location and on that property. You're talking about those towers were built over a matter of 2 to 3 years, and so think about that. And so here in other parts of the country, if this disaster had happened on along the East Coast in New Jersey and New York versus along the state of Texas, it would take years upon years, a decade or more, for you to see the recovery. Here in Texas, you're talking about you're seeing the recovery taking place yesterday. The rebuilding started yesterday, the day before that. As soon as they could get in and they had water, waist deep, they were ready to start hauling garbage out of the houses, That's the way they do. And, it's going to take a long time, but what's going to happen is you're going to see the city of Houston rebuild the stuff that was destroyed, and then you're going to see more new development, more new businesses, and more people wanting to move here because they go, you know what, those Texans, they're some all right people. They're a hardy breed. And you know what, if you want to come to Texas, we're more than happy to adopt you. As long as you want to, as long as you can
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
Understand that here you have to, not only do you have to, it starts with you. It starts in your own heart. But then, once it starts with that own self-confidence, that self-resilience, then that is what leads you to load up your bass boat and traverse across the entire state to help rescuing people that you don't even know, to load up your pickup with supplies and drive the entire state and go meet people that you've never known, help strangers that you would never have met, visit. There's people that have never been to Houston that are there helping out right now. It's truly, truly amazing what we've seen take place.
I had to make a comparison because I'd seen the movie in the past 2 or 3 weeks. One of the first things that I thought of when I saw that going on, people coming from another state, people coming from different towns and cities into Houston, one of the first things I thought of in terms of comparison was Dunkirk. This is a civilian population helping itself because it has some of the infrastructure, the needs, etc., and if not applied there, it's sitting in someone's backyard, and those persons all decided on their own they're going to go and help. Now, this has been politicized in an astounding fashion, and because I'm on Twitter and Gab and a few other things like that, I have to read to you, Dan, the most disgusting, disreputable tweet that I've happened to see in quite some time. This is from somebody named Brianna Danielle, and it does have to do on a certain way with Hurricane Harvey, but this particular person is pointing at Hurricane Irma, and the quote on the tweet is this: "So they say Hurricane Irma is headed for Miami. Did y'all realize 70% of Miami is Latino, Hispanic, or Cuban? 44% of the Haitian population in the U.S. resides in Miami. Miami is like Houston, in which it is flourishing economically. Coincidence? Trump wants them off our land, so what better way than to flood them out? Read between the lines, people. Are you fucking kidding me?" And the answer is no, it's a leftist, so no, I'm not kidding at all.
Well, who knew? Well, who knew that Donald Trump was actually God and could cause hurricanes? I'm sure he whipped up Hurricane Harvey, and now he's whipped up Hurricane Irma and Hurricane. What have we named the one behind that? Jose, I believe. I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
Or something. I can't remember what we've named that storm. But the point being is, you're seeing a lot of this nonsense.
It's just stupid.
Let me give you this one. Alyssa Milano. People will remember she's a washed-up actress from the 80s and the 90s. She made the comment when President Trump made a proclamation of a national day of prayer for the hurricane victims. And, of course, she responds back and says, well, Donald Trump has issued a proclamation for a national day of assholes. You saw Politico run let me correct myself on who ran that cartoon. I can't remember. It may have been Politico. It may have been somebody else. But somebody ran a cartoon. I'll have to go back and look. But I want to say it was Politico. Ran a cartoon of some folks, of some Texans being rescued off the top of a house. And they're making fun of the Texans, saying, "Hey, look! It's the angels have come to rescue us." And then of course the National Guard was saying, "No, it's the National Guard and the government that's come to rescue." You know, poking fun of Texans for being Christians, for being self-resilient, for supposedly being anti-government, and blah 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 blah. So you were seeing, instead of here's the thing. Instead of coming together like we were doing here in the state of Texas, you saw a lot of our progressive folks that were trying to capitalize on this, trying to spew more hate, more divisiveness. You had progressive groups such as Black Lives Matter that were actually fundraising off Hurricane Harvey, say, you know what, hey, donate to us. We can better use that money than those folks in Texas can.
Sure.
You know, that type of stuff. And so they were true. My personal opinion, the likes of Black Lives Matter, the likes of Antifa, the likes of white supremacists. Let's just throw them in there. They're all one and the same in my book. The KKK, whatever. They're all just really hateful, nasty, radical, dangerous groups, in my opinion. They were all threatened by what took place in Texas. Mary Brotman makes a good point. Charlie ran that cartoon about just really hateful towards what was taking place in Texas. But I truly think that there were a lot of progressives that were threatened by what was taking place in Texas. Because stop and think about this. Everything they do is identity politics, okay?
Exactly.
Everything they do is divisive politics. Everything they do is based on racism, on race baiting. And you saw just the opposite here in Texas. It did not matter. Race was a non-issue here. Everybody came together. Everybody loved their fellow man. Everybody loved everybody else's children. Everybody was willing to help everybody. It didn't matter if you were a millionaire, black, white, whatever. They all came together. And when everybody comes together like this, and you see the true nature of people, when you take out the race baiting, when you take out the incendiary rhetoric, etc., from the likes of Barack Obama, we'll just throw that in there, Jesse Jackson, etc. When you throw, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, when you take all that out and the people come together, that is truly threatening to them. That threatens everything that they actually stand for. They don't care about the people. They care about controlling the people.
I'll go you one further. I'll say it's even more foundational than that. Leftists, Antifa, Democrats, the American media maggots, certain personnel, sadly, in the Republican Party, they cannot afford to have Trump win anywhere, anything, for any reason, because a Trump success on any level is a punch in the groin to all the rest of these other elements. And they will do, you and I both know, Dan, they will do and conduct themselves in any way necessary in order to undermine Trump so that he cannot have a success. Because that means if Trump is successful, if he pulls around the economy, if he does some of the things that he says he wants to do, the worst is on the wall. You could have a second term. Oh my God, you cannot have a success. They don't care who's hurt. They don't care who's injured. And frankly, I think some of them really don't give a crap if people die behind their philosophy. I truly believe that.
Dave, BZ, I've got an article up on High Plains Pundit right now, and it's the headline is Donald Trump a failure as a president? And, of course, I make the outlines through it and show all these success. You're talking about an article, 2,000 words or longer, that I literally list all the successes of the Trump administration to date. It's astounding all the little accomplishments along with the few big ones that have taken place very quietly. Now, if you've been reading, those of us in new media, you know about these successes. If you've been reading the New York Times, if you've been watching CNN, you've been watching, quite honestly, a movement to try to take Donald Trump down, to try to run him out of Washington D.C. because he is a threat. Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump is a multimillionaire, I think Dave made a good point in the chat room when he said Trump's success is seen as Joe Sixpack's success. That's who elected Donald Trump. People will say, well, it was those white supremacists. It was all those KK members, all the racists in the country that elected Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. He did not get more votes than Hillary Clinton. Well, you know what? For you folks that say that, you are freaking idiots. Let me remind everybody, this is the United States of America. We are a group of 50 sovereign states that come together to form a republic. And the reason that we have our elections the way we do for president is so that the state of Montana will have the same say as the state of California, so that the state of Rhode Island will have the same say as the state of Texas. The state of Florida will have the same say as the state of Massachusetts. I think everybody gets the gist. That is why the Electoral College is there. And that's why we don't elect the president on a popular vote. It was not, our founders were very wise to think about that they wanted to make sure that all of the states had equal representation, not only on the state levels, but on the federal level. That's why you see the branches of government the way they are. And that's why our country is very unique. And of course, the progressives would love to do away with all of that. They want everything centralized. Everything should be run out of Washington, D.C. Everything should be run out of metro areas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have to keep the people under control. We cannot allow them to have too much say. People left to their own devices are dangerous. They can't take care of themselves. Really? Yeah. What are you seeing in the state of Texas right now, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, there are people that still think that this is a democracy. It's a federated constitutional republic. It's not a democracy. And the Electoral College, which, of course, everyone wants to eliminate, is the reason that you have fundamental fairness all across the entire fruited plain. Dan Butcher, we've been speaking to for the past hour. Dan, do you have anything that you'd like to wrap up with? Or do you have another show coming?
You know what, BZ? If you want me to stay a few more minutes, I can, because I know you got to do a break.
Yes, I do. I'm at the top of the hour. I got to do a break. And you know what? If you're going to go there, I'd like to go two more places with you. One of them is North Korea, and another one is Blog Talk Spreaker. So, folks, hang on. We've been speaking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame, and we're going to continue to speak to Dan. It's been a great evening. The first hour is already gone. Where does it go? Folks, please stick around. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen,
at Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Tuesday night edition, September 5th, the year of our Lord 2017 edition of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We've been speaking for the past hour to Dan Butcher, editor, owner, and media conglomerate, astounding star on his own of the High Plains Pundit fame. And we were talking the entire past hour about what's been going on with Hurricane Harvey, its results, etc. I'd like to transition over into North Korea, because these are some troubling times, and especially with the newest, the 7th nuclear blast, which was a hydrogen bomb, it's estimated, that North Korea cooked off recently, this past weekend, and all the saber-rattling that's going on, and of course the ballistic missile that was shot over the island of Hokkaido, Japan, last week. The envelopes are getting pushed. Dan, your thoughts on that?
You know what? I quite honestly, I think we may be past the point of no return with North Korea. It may be time to take out their nuclear facilities and their missile launch sites. I think at this point we have to consider taking out anything and everything that they have militarily. Little Kim's boast of attacking the U.S. with nuclear weapons, they're probably their usual raising the stakes to gain more concessions from us, usually in the form of money, food, a halt to the U.S. ROK exercises, a halt to sanctions. Of course, the liberals here in the United States will immediately start calling for more talks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, the real worry is not that they can put this on top of a missile, but you also have to consider is that they may have achieved some kind of tipping point in their nuclear weapons program, and that they will be working on making it much smaller, fitting it into increasingly accurate ICBMs and selling their technology to any regimes or terrorist groups that that have money, proliferation of their weapons, that can literally end life on Earth. BZ, it has to stop. We have to draw a line somewhere and say enough is enough. I don't think we can count on the Chinese to help us with this. I don't think we can count on the Russians to help us with this. We've got to take out Little Kim's regime completely and permanently. And I know that's controversial with a lot of people. But think about this. Withholding food aid is not going to cause North Korea to dismantle its nuclear program. The nukes are their source of power and wealth. Without the nukes, no one would even pay attention to them.
Absolutely.
With the nukes, even the mightiest of nations respect and fear them, including the Chinese. I still think that the only solution is to take out this regime now. A quick, decisive strike on their nuclear facilities, followed by, prolonged tomahawk strikes on basically all military and potential military targets. I would say that we need to take out Little Kim himself. I think South Korea is going to have to engage them along the DMZ with full firepower. Once again, there's really no other option at this point. Previous presidents and congressional leaders, Republicans and Democrats, have kicked this can down the road way too many times, and now it's landed in Donald Trump's lap. And here we are. We're faced with Armageddon with North Korea because of it being passed in other leaders refusing to deal with it. You know what? North Korea is not really a threat, but they really are. Let me end with this real quick. I think if we do nothing, and perhaps we try to mollify these maniacs with talks, bribes, appeals, and stand downs, they will proliferate their arsenal to nefarious players in Africa, the Middle East, and we could be faced with World War III if we do nothing about them. The best of a set of bad choices, I think, once again, is to take out the regime right now, take out their military and nuclear capabilities now, while it's still possible, BZ.
One of the things that's an interesting point that I've noticed about the entire aspect of this is that there's no middle ground. It goes from the spectrum is wide, and there's nothing in the middle. There are those on one side that say that we must sit down with Kim and have a conversation, a dialogue, and begin to have an understanding. Well, that's been attempted before. Then there are those who are on the other side of things saying that, at what point do you actually draw a line, and all the neighbor countries having been threatened by this individual, at one point do you actually begin to take him seriously? I said last week, I think I could make an excellent argument in an international court that if you decided that you were going to make a first strike, not with a limited blinder set on, but in consideration of all the things that he's done over his regime, I could make an excellent argument for a first strike. Japan, of all people, whose defense force is quantified as just that. They're considering a first strike option. My first thought or suggestion was the next thing that goes up into the air, knock it down, fire it down. If we have the THAAD systems in place to do that, I say go ahead. The second thing I also suggest is target. I know that there are at least 2 North Korean satellites that are orbiting the Earth. There may be more. My suggestion would be, whatever there are, take down a minimum of 1, perhaps 2. That's just a start. The corollary to that is this. Because of the instability, some people are saying he's a completely rational individual and he's crazy like a fox. He knows exactly what he's doing. And the other part is, and I'm included in this, is
at Canik Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canik Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canik, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
he may be crazy like a fox, but I truly suggest that he's unhinged. And you cannot expect that he will see rationally things to do in the future, because he's surrounded nothing. He's absolutely walled off from everyone else. All he's hearing is what he wants to hear. And the bottom line is this. I'm suggesting it's not entirely impossible that we could have the first nuclear exchange since 1945.
I will say this. You have to think, North Korea is people will say, well, it's a communist regime. It's really a dictatorship. Okay, let's make that
plain and simple.
clear. North Korea is a dictatorship. It's not a communist. It's a communist country in name only. It is a dictatorship.
They see him as a god.
You have to think that somewhere along the lines, is there somebody that has some sense of self-preservation? But the folks in North Korea are so indoctrinated that they think that the United States of America is not capable of defending itself, is not capable of attacking their country. But you have to think some of this is leaking into the country. And you would hope that versus I gave one scenario when I gave my opening remarks about that. You have to think there has to be a second scenario in there. The thing that the main thing with the Cold War between the United States and Russia was of course we both had an understanding of mutual destruction. If we fired the nukes, we were both gone. So you have to think somebody in North Korea has to understand that if they fire off a missile, they're gone. Everybody is dead. And so you have to think, is somebody looking at, just like what you were talking about, somebody has to realize, I know the Chinese know that he's a freaking lunatic, but you have to think, is somebody in the military going to try to take him out before he makes an order? Or if he does give the order, will the military actually carry it out, or will they revolt? You also have to stop and think, will the Japanese try to launch some type of covert operation? Will the Chinese, to assassinate Kim. That's why you see him on the move all the time, much of in the vein of
Saddam Hussein,
of certain Middle Eastern leaders, Saddam Hussein, Bin Laden, et cetera, et cetera. Let me throw this out here, and I'll throw it back to you, BC. North Korea no longer cares about their relationship with China. They don't care about a relationship with Russia. We have seen how well the quote-unquote nuclear deal has gone with Iran that was agreed to by the Obama administration. Iran remains to this day the largest funder of terrorism in the world. So what is to keep, if Little Kim stays in power, what is to keep him from forming an alliance with North Korea? What is to keep him from forming an alliance with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda? You know, you're talking about Bin Laden's son is now in charge of Al-Qaeda. What's to keep him from forming an alliance with Hezbollah, with Hamas? I think you get where I'm going with this.
Well, certainly.
North Korea is becoming a terrorist state. And what was to keep them from carrying out terrorist activities with nuclear weapons? I think we're heading to that if we do nothing.
Kim could be what I quantify as Baja Iran.
Yes.
It could be that region of the planet's equivalent of Iran, that is to say, funding and providing. Who's to say that they couldn't provide certain fissile materials to bad actors who I'm supposing would be welcomed with open arms into North Korea? It's a situation unlike I've seen ever. But China has a massive, and I'm really curious what China plans to do. China drew a verbal line when it said that if there's another nuclear cook-off, that there are going to be serious consequences. That's China that said that. Well, we have the 7th nuclear explosion in North Korea. I have yet to see China draw that line. The big question is, are they a paper tiger too? So is this a test just for us, or is it a test with China as well? And who will survive that? Is it mental, or is it going to go physical? Is it going to go, let's compare throw weights? Let
me point this out about China real quick. You know, China is a communist nation with a lot of capitalism in it.
Yes.
China is smart enough to know that North Korea is not good for business. They know that if North Korea continues like this could hurt their exports. You know, China's not in the import business. China is in the export business. And they know that if Little Kim remains in power and he continues this latest nuclear test that they did, we're talking about a hydrogen bomb somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 times larger than what the United States dropped on Japan in World War II. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of this, something that created almost a 6-point earthquake. You're talking about something very, very powerful. It's bad for business for China. It's bad for business for Japan. No, Japan's not in the import business. Japan is in the export business. All of Asia is in the export business, not the import business. It's bad for Hong Kong. So I think you're getting where I'm going with this. You know, the Chinese, I think, when with North Korea has the potential not to maybe attack them militarily, but they have the potential to hurt them economically and cripple them depending on what type of stunts and different things that they do. And I don't think the Chinese are going to stand for it. It's kind of like the mob. You know, the mob would never stand around for anybody that was bad for business. They were dealt with very quickly. So I think we're getting to that tipping point, and I hope, you know, like I said, you know, when I gave a scenario, I think that, you know, we're going to have to deal with them militarily. Yeah, will it be the United States that has to deal with them militarily? I don't know. Will it be China that has to deal with them militarily? Maybe so. I still think along the lines of Kim being removed from power is something that you'll see China or the Japanese try to do. But I think China is to the point now that North Korea is bad for business, and maybe the hit is coming sooner than later involving Little Kim.
The one point that you bring out is the economic power, and I'd submit this to you, because China does not want this well known.
At Canik Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canik Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canik, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
It's not the economic powerhouse that it was, say, even 2 or 3 years ago. They're weakening. They cannot afford to be seen as weak. They're spending literally millions and billions of dollars throughout the rest of the world because they want to spend and throw their largesse out to other countries. They want to be seen as the new United States. That's really expensive. Building an island in the middle of the sea is really expensive. All of these things at once press much pressure on Xi Jinping. He's under a lot of pressure, but again, the big question is, we're still waiting. What's going to be China's response? I submit they can't take it economically, as you point out. I also submit that to do nothing proves to North Korea that Kim is sitting in the catbird seat, not the president of the entire nation of China. China cannot afford to be held hostage by this little fat fucker. They cannot afford to do that. Therefore, what are they going to do? I don't believe they can do nothing. Russia, that's something entirely different. Russia pulled 1,500 people away from the 24-mile line with North Korea because they sensed something is coming. Well, no duh. But in terms of getting involved, no. Russia's going to stand back because geographically, they can pretty much afford to. Moscow is quite some distance away from Pyongyang.
You know, I look at it this way too, BZ, is that, you know, China thinks China doesn't think like we do. You know, where you and I and other people think, what are we going to do tomorrow, maybe later this week, maybe a month down the road. You know, the Chinese think in terms of not 5 years, not 10 years, not 50 years, not 100 years. You know, the Chinese think 100 or 500 years down the road because they've been around so long. So, but, you know, so they're going to look at this and say, okay, if we allow Kim to stay in power, where are we going to be in a few years? Will we be able to withstand? We know he's going to die sometime, okay? Because you know he may die sooner than later, depending on his diet or whatever. So, can we afford to sit around and wait, or is this guy unhinged enough to do something tonight? And I think the Chinese know that he's probably just unhinged enough to do something tonight and to try to pull something stupid. And so they know that will affect them not only, you know, 5 years down the road, 10 years, but 100 years down the road, and could cripple them for generations to come. And they do not want to see that. And so I think that is something that's going to spur the Chinese into doing something, because they know that what little Kim does today is going to affect them many, many years down the road tomorrow. And the Japanese do the same thing. And I think that, you know, with what we have with President Trump versus dealing with President Obama, even George W. Bush and President Clinton and George H.W. Bush, is that, Trump is actually listening to the military leaders. And you have heard that, especially with some of the operations that we have in the Middle East and taking place in Afghanistan stuff. The military leaders say that Trump is listening to them on the decisions and letting them engage and listening to their points of view. And, they're the ones that are the experts. They have seen this. Trump is listening to the intelligence. Whereas, of course, we've had the previous president who really didn't know anything about intelligence. He liked to skip intelligence meetings, et cetera. Trump thinks along the same lines that the Chinese are doing. Trump is thinking economically. Okay, he's thinking, okay, if we don't do something about Kim today, how bad is that going to hurt the United States tomorrow? He understands that we have to do something today because it's not only going to hurt the United States, it's going to hurt China, it's going to hurt Japan, the entire world is going to be affected if little Kim somehow manages to blow off a missile somewhere and blow up a major city, whether it be, in somewhere in Japan, China, God forbid, in a U.S. territory. The ramifications are going to be dramatic if he's allowed to do that.
I would suggest that those people who say that that are going to depend upon the sane probity of Kim Jong-un, they're making a fool's wager, and it's just not. It's not a casual fool's wager in terms of conventional weapons. Now he's ratcheted up to the ultimate end game. Now we're talking a potential nuclear power helmed by someone who, in my mind, is not stable. Now, here's an interesting point that I brought up about a week ago. Historically speaking, there's precedence for this. We know that because of his diet, he has gout. He has terrible gout. One of the things that you take for gout are steroids. Steroids puff you up just like what you see there. And in terms of that, steroids, as you well know, make you a little bit unhinged and make you aggressive. Look at female bodybuilders, for example. It's not impossible that this could be an element in the play. I go back, historically speaking, to say this. Many of Rome's power mongers at the time, some of them were said to be quite unhinged. One of the things we know about Rome is that they piped water. For the first time in quite some time, they actually had a water-functioning system with lines and pipes which were lined with lead. And many people are suggesting historically that that was one of the reasons that Rome fell, because of the terrible decisions that were made politically. Just throwing those elements into the mix, but the bottom line is if you're counting on the stability of Kim Jong-un, you're making a terrible assumption, a wrong assumption, in my opinion.
Let me bring this up because you bring up a good point, and I want to use this kind of this illustration as you bring up the good point about steroids. Okay, a few years ago, there was back in 2007, there was a professional wrestler by the name of Chris Bonet, and he had many years of taking steroids. And basically, what ended up happening is that he went on. He developed roid rage. The steroid use caused him to lose his thinking. He was not thinking straight. He ended up killing his wife and strangling his 7-year-old son, and then hanged himself. His wife was murdered. She was bound at the feet and wrist and strangled to death, etc. So that's a great example of what can happen when somebody is exposed to prolonged steroid abuse, which you could see if reports and intelligence is correct, and somebody such as the North Korean leader is taking steroids for his health. it could be leading to, brain damage, which is going to lead to, guess what? A lot of irrational thinking, a lot of irrational decisions. It's going to lead to, he's going to have delusions of grandeur, of invincibility, that type of thing. And so that once again, that he's completely invincible. He's going to see himself as kind of a Superman. Hey, you know what? I am. There's no way that I can be harmed. I'm invincible. And if that's the case, and you're onto something, BZ, if we do have somebody that is, using and abusing steroids such as this, you're talking about somebody that is that has their hands, and it could be very, very dangerous.
Pharmacologically speaking, this has occurred in history before, and I'm thinking again specifically to 1945. And I'm going to go back directly to Adolf Hitler, because we know that Hitler's doctor was injecting him with methamphetamine and many other drugs that kept him up, kept him wired, kept him to the point where towards the end, obviously, and he was suffering some terrible effects physically of the injections and the drugs that he was consuming, and it cannot help but affect him mentally as well. His decision-making at the end of the war was not the same decision-making that occurred at the beginning of the war. There's precedent for this. It's not entirely impossible. There's a precedent for this stupid stuff. And when people say that it could be an element as small as that, it eminently could. It's happened before.
Oh, you bet. You've seen it throughout history. You've seen what different diseases that world leaders have gotten over the course of history that have led to their insanity and stuff. I know we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour, and if you need me to stay, I can stay after that. We might as well just go to the end of the show. Bottom line, BZ, I think we're talking about something that a lot of other people are not talking about, and that has to do with the mental state of Kim. You don't hear a lot about that. They want to talk about the mental state. The liberals in this country are so freaking stupid and such dumbasses. They want to talk about the mental state of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has control of nuclear weapons, and he could do this and this and this. You know what? Is he a little crazy? Is he chose to be president? But yet you're talking about you don't want to question the mental state of someone such as Little Kim, who is threatening to blow up the entire world. Give me a break. And I think we're onto something there that needs to be discussed. I think it needs to be explored and investigated a little bit more. And if that's the case, that even makes the case that he needs to be removed from power even more urgent.
I suggest this. The physiological element is something that you do not consider at your own peril. So you must take that into consideration, I'm suggesting, when you're making your decisions. That has to be one factor that you consider amongst a host of others as to your reactions to what he's doing. Folks, we've been talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame. We're coming into the last segment. It's 9:30 on the left coast. It's 12:30 on the right coast. In Bolivia, it's 1793 and 117 seconds. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is in fact the final segment. Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We have been speaking for the entire show with Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always enjoy having Dan on. I hope
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
And we'll sometimes always enjoy having BZ on. So that begs a question. Are you thinking about coming back into a show? And if so, sir, are you thinking about, say, a Sunday show? Did you happen to catch any of that, Dan?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I was asking if you were thinking about coming back for a Sunday show.
Let me tell you what we got going on with my own show. Is I am broadcasting on Sunday and Monday nights. In case anybody, you can kind of put the puzzles together. I've got Sunday and Monday night. BZ has Tuesday and Thursday, and then of course the Sackheads have Wednesday. Ha! You see a rhyme and reason to that. So anyway, I will be back on. And to answer Mary's question, Mary, I am on every Saturday and Sunday night at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, 11 Eastern. So we also do various specials throughout the month where with our interviews and different things like that. So you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. I have some great interviews lined up. going into as we get ready to start the election season. We will have who's kind of a regular on my show, who's the current Energy Secretary, Rick Perry, will be joining us. So that'll be coming up later in September. I'm hoping to have Ted Cruz back on later in September as well. So anyway, there's some kind of regulars for the show that we do with our interviews. Also, we're going to have some, of course, with High Plains Pundit, we focus on the state of Texas, national and world news. So we're going to have a lot of the state leaders, state elected officials on to talk about a lot of what we were talking about tonight, the response to Hurricane Harvey and the rebuilding process and the future economic situation in Houston after the hurricane. So, and I want to do a little promo real quick.
You should.
This concerns your show tomorrow night, and Sean Lewis will probably be filling you in on this, but tomorrow night on Sackheads, there will be a very special guest that will be coming on the show to make a very big show announcement. So just to kind of tease the listeners a little bit, tomorrow night, probably about 8:15 your time, there will be a very special guest coming on to make a big show announcement concerning that person's show and SHR Media. So that's something for everybody to look forward to as well.
How absolutely outstanding. Before we forget, though, tell everybody where you can be found, where your website is.
Oh, man, you know what? You just go to highplainspundit.com, and you can find everything there. You can find High Plains Pundit Radio. You can find High Plains Pundit TV. You name it, everything is there. We've had a great response to the. We just did I spent the past week doing a major redesign on the website. One of the biggest things I kept hearing from our readers, listeners, and viewers is, man, we want more content. We don't get enough content. And I think everybody who's visited my website knows that we don't have pop-up ads. The advertising on our site is very discreet.
Yep.
But the biggest thing I got was we want more content, more content. Well, if you go to the website, you will see with the redesign, we had that in focus. Content, and more content. So that's what you're going to see. And really, the website, the design is kind of goes back to the original design of High Plains Pundit with a very updated twist to it. So a lot of different sections. Everything's broke down into sections for sports, national, world news, state of Texas news, featured articles, opinion, et cetera, et cetera. I think everybody kind of gets the idea of what we did there. So we've had a real good response to everything we've done. And we had to do an update because our audience continues to grow. We're now averaging over 15 million readers a month to High Plains Pundit. It's a far cry from when we launched in 2009, and the 59 readers or so that we had.
That's about what I get.
It's come a long ways, and we also need to make the design. Obviously moving into the future. There's kind of the demand there. High Plains Pundit. We started out as a simple blog. Just a simple blog with my opinions, a little bit of news aggregation, to where we have grown into a major media news outlet. High Plains Pundit is now a multimedia platform with written content, with radio, with internet TV. So we're now a multimedia outlet. And that's kind of what we've grown into to where now we have we're a member of Associated Press. We have various different media partnerships where we share content. For example, here in the state of Texas, we share content with the Texas Tribune. They use our content. We use some of theirs. So we've gone from a simple blog to where we were aggregating content to where we are a news source now, to where people use our news, our articles, and so it kind of ups the ante a little bit, and we're very excited about the future of where everything's going.
People that say that they want more content, I guess they don't realize that you're at a keyboard typing damn near 24/7. Folks, I put out about a post a day. If I'm really motivated, I'll put out 2 posts in a day. That's not cat piss for you. You can put out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 posts in a day. They want content. Holy crap, they're not paying attention as far as I'm concerned.
BZ, I personally, Mary hit the number. I personally write somewhere, usually 10 articles a day myself. And that's usually 1 opinion piece plus 9 news articles.
There you go. I was low.
That doesn't include, I have 12 writers that write for the site. And then on top of that, that includes the content sharing that we do. So we do put out a lot of content every day.
12 writers. You have 12 writers for your site. Holy. Okay, didn't see that one coming. Holy moly.
And like I said, that doesn't include the content. That does not include the content sharing that we have. So once again, that's the name of the game. You know, we've undertaken that, and that's what we've developed into. I'm very fortunate. You know, I was one of the few many years ago, even when I had when it was just me with a simple blog, I was able to do this for a living. And then, of course, it grew. Then, of course, Barry says I do it all in about 10 minutes. I wish. It's about how much I get to sleep a day. But no, to give you an idea of where it starts, my day generally starts at 4 o'clock in the morning. I will go to bed a little after when we get done here. I will go to bed, and usually somewhere between 4 and 4:30, I get up and start my day and start writing articles that I'm doing, start editing articles, pulling articles from other sources that we share content with, submitting approving content to go on other sites that we have sharing agreements with, and then on top of that, homeschooling all of my children.
Well, it's just like Mary said.
I stay pretty busy.
Dan is a busy boy, and he does it all in 10 minutes. Hey, since we're talking about media, I'd like to throw out one final question about media, since we're kind of on that vein, and then maybe wrap up the last portion with some things about DACA, just to give you a little bit of a thing for the tickler file, so to speak. But first, I had just heard on Twitter, I think it was, the first time I heard this, that Blog Talk Radio and Spreaker were going to merge. Since I don't know anything about Blog Talk, and I know just enough to make myself dangerous about Spreaker, do you have any thoughts about that merger?
Well, let me kind of summarize what's happening with Blog Talk and Spreaker. Blog Talk, of course, Blog Talk is the grandfather of podcasting. They are the group. What's that?
Oh no, I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, I must have echoed myself. But Blog Talk Radio is really when you wanted to start your own podcast. You could just use your phone, call in, and hey, guess what? You're on the air and doing your own thing. Okay, and Blog Talk Radio over the years, they started out as a small company, and they've had to make upgrades, good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes they've rolled out stuff before it was fully tested, but that was the nature of the beast, with the ever-changing nature of how fast and how popular podcasting was becoming. So, moving forward, over the years, other platforms have come out, whether it is Spreaker or etc. But Spreaker is probably the best platform out there right now for podcasters to use. If you want a professional internet radio program, Spreaker is it. Now, because of the sound quality, etc. Now, now Blog Talk does have some advantages to it. That being number one, it's call bank. With Blog Talk Radio, you can have you do have your own call lines and etc. For example, when I use Blog Talk Radio, I have 100 call-in lines. I have the one that has 100 lines, and you can pick different packages that has 50 lines, 100, whatever. And I usually fill up all of my lines during the show with people listening via their phone, not just calling in, but listening to the phone, etc. And that gives me a great wealth. I can just push the button and pull people on at random if I want, from the thing. So that's an advantage that it has over Spreaker, which you're well aware that you have to use Skype in conjunction with Spreaker or some other call platform.
Not real happy with that.
Lines.
Yeah.
So that is far superior than anything else out there. The other thing that was very attractive to Spreaker, and that has to do with the new monetization program and platform that BTR has rolled out. And the analytics that they use, they're far superior than what Spreaker uses. And so, and I think it's no secret that for a long time, BTR has lost money, okay? And they've been struggling and trying to get through it. This is actually a marriage that's been in the works for a couple of years. And so you're kind of going to get the best of both worlds. My personal opinion in all this is that it is a good move for both companies. You're going to see everything's going to come under the Spreaker banner. Spreaker has already rolled out a new homepage. The good things that we're hoping to see with this is that Spreaker will adopt from the BTR platform. And the only thing I want to see them adopt from the BTR platform is, number one, the analytics, which are excellent, and number two is the phone lines. I think that is probably the biggest thing that current hosts on Spreaker would love to see, is to have access to that phone system that it has been developed by BTR. And of course, the folks from BTR, in return, that have shows over there, are going to get access to the great sound quality that you get from Spreaker, which is far, far, far superior than what you get on BTR. And so that's what it is. And I think it's a good move all the way around. It's not surprising that you're seeing this move. It's just to make both companies even stronger. And I think in the long run, all of the hosts, really the hosts on Spreaker are not going to see that big a difference. The pricing structure is going to be the same. Of course, everybody that broadcasts on SHR, SHR foots the bill for that. So all the hosts that originate here, you don't have to pay anything. SHR is very generous and foots the bill for everybody to broadcast if you're originating your show with them. But the BTR, the folks coming from Blog Talk Radio, they're going to have to adjust because it's going to be a little bit different pricing structure as far as hosting and stuff like that. But the BTR folks are really going to benefit from this because they will see a dramatic difference in their sound quality and what their shows sound like.
Well, thank God for my shameless contract then, because I at least have one with SHR.
Yes.
It includes Thin Mints also, I should say. Well, I tell you what.
Let me tell you about my contract with SHR.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that one. Let's just say it's incredibly lucrative, isn't it? It's just
my mother negotiated it. But anyway,
well, I tell you what, that does
get you on that. Anyway,
assures me. I feel better about that because, quite frankly, I was concerned about the merger.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think there's any concern there. There's not going to be you're not going to. The biggest thing that I heard. This was the biggest thing that I heard is that consolidation. There's going to be a big price increase. Da 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 da. Well, no, they can't afford to do that, and the reason is there's so many different other platforms out there that are even cheaper than what BTR. BTR is actually very cheap to use. It's actually
at Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability because freedom isn't just a right, It's a responsibility. Canik, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.
Excuse me, Spreaker is the folks from Blog Talk Radio are going to get a decrease in what they're paying each month to host their shows. So because the pricing structure is going to be based on Spreaker's structure, and so they're actually going to get better sound quality, and they're going to get a little bit cheaper price to do it. But there's so many different platforms out there that you can use now. A lot of people can originate it, load it up themselves, and then load it up to their website themselves. They don't even have to use BTR, or they don't have to use Spreaker. It's just the convenience of the studio. And let me tell you this, BZ, when I started out in radio many, many, many years ago, and I know you did too, is that when we started out, when I started out in the mid '80s, we were still doing all of our ads on reel to reel, where we actually had to queue up the reel to reel tapes for our ads. And we were just starting to get into cassette singles. We weren't even getting into CDs yet. Towards the end of the 80s into starting in the 90s, we were getting into CDs. But we were just starting to get cassette singles and different things where we didn't just have to queue up the 45s. but I remember the big old boards that we had and different things to do it versus what I can do at home on my computer now. It's just absolutely phenomenal that I can produce a top quality program that sounds better than anything I've ever done on terrestrial radio sitting at my desk with my computer.
That's right. In your pajamas or, wearing a neoprene wetsuit or smearing yourself with Wesson oil, as long as you don't have video going on, you're fine. You're just fine. Okay, well, that makes me feel a lot better about that. So on the final, we got about a little bit less than 10 minutes left. What I'd like to do is I'd like to play a couple of cuts for you, and I think you'll be able to hear it. One of them is basically emphasizes, and we knew this was true, that the DACA program is absolutely unlawful. And President Obama actually made this statement in his own words at a 2011 town hall with Univision. And this is what the lovely Barack Hussein Obama had to say about DACA.
With respect to the notion that I can just suspend deportations through executive order, that's just not the case, because there are laws on the books that Congress has passed, and I know that everybody here at Bell is studying hard, so you know that we've got three branches of government. Congress passes the law. The executive branch's job is to enforce and implement those laws, and then the judiciary has to interpret the laws. There are enough laws on the books by Congress that are very clear in terms of how we have to enforce our immigration system, that for me to simply, through executive order, ignore those congressional mandates would not conform with my appropriate role as president.
Now, an amazing thing that. So he admits back in 2011 that he doesn't have the authority to do that. Well, here's another cut that's about 44 seconds long, and he's talking about the relationship of illegals in terms of voting in United States elections. That's why I love video, and I love the digital world, because we can bring all this shite up and shove it right back in his damn face.
Many of the millennials, dreamers, undocumented citizens, and I call them citizens because they contribute to this country, are fearful of voting. So if I vote, will immigration know where I live? Will they come for my family? And
she means I'm going to be an illegal and I'm going to vote illegally.
Deport us?
Not true.
not true. Okay, it's as far as Barack Hussein Obama is concerned, voting illegally is just peachy.
And the reason is, first of all, when you vote, you are a citizen yourself, and there is not a situation where the voting rolls somehow are transferred over and people start investigating, etc. The sanctity of the vote is strictly confidential in terms of who you voted for. If you have a family member who maybe is undocumented, then you have an even greater reason to vote.
You have an even greater reason to vote. Oh my God. But it's there immured in all time, the hypocrisy, the incredible hypocrisy of the leftists and the American media maggots these days regarding DACA.
You know what? Let me do this real quick, BZ. And this is, I think it's important because if people did not see what Barack Obama said about the decision today, let me real quick because it's real short. Obama called the Trump administration's decision cruel and self-defeating. This is what he said real quick. Today, that shadow has been cast over some of our best and brightest young people once again. To target these young people is wrong because they have done nothing wrong. It is self-defeating because they want to start new businesses, staff our labs, serve in our military, and otherwise contribute to the country we love, and it is cruel. What if our kid's science teacher, our friendly neighbor, turns out to be a dreamer? Where are we supposed to send her? To a country she doesn't know or remember with a language she may not even speak? Ultimately, this is about basic decency. This is about whether we are a people who kick hopeful strivers out of America or whether we treat them the way we would want our own kids to be treated. It is about who we are as a people and who we want to be. And because it made no sense to expel talent-driven, patriotic young people from the only country they know solely because of the actions of their parents, my administration acted to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people and so that they could continue to contribute to our communities and our country. We did so based on the well-established legal principle of prosecutorial discretion deployed by Democratic and Republican presidents alike because our immigration enforcement agencies have limited resources, and it makes sense to focus these resources on those who come illegally to this country to do us harm. Obama wrote on his Facebook page. I took that from the article I wrote earlier, and what a complete and utter bunch of bullshit from the former president who only cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is his legacy, BZ.
It's also this way. It's emotive.
Yes.
It's all about emo, and it has very little to do with facts. An article came out in the Political Insider today, which is not a left-leaning or a right-leaning particular organ, so to speak. Its headline today, study. Illegal immigration costs taxpayers $30 billion in lost taxes. It's a fiscal drain. Not to even mention the fact in Los Angeles jails at any given time, 40 to 50 to 60%, and it varies, of all the people incarcerated in the Los Angeles County jails are illegal. That is a staggering fact, not a suggestion, not predicated but upon emotions. It's a fact.
And let me point this out too, BZ. If you had watched CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, et cetera, today, you would have thought, and now you have to remember that this is going to be, they're starting the process of eliminating DACA, but there is a grace period as to when they're going to officially end the program,
right.
And it goes anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on the plan. So there is the possibility that the Republicans in Congress could cave and actually still make this law. So stop and think about that. But if you were listening to some of these media outlets, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, etc., you would have thought that Donald Trump had gone before the nation and announced and said, I am deporting all of these poor little innocent children They were making it out to seem that Donald Trump had ordered the deportation of little children. Think about that. You know, when you think little children, you're thinking about 5 and 6 year old children. That is what they were making this out to be. That it was going to be a deportation program to deport all of these poor little children back to little countries that they knew nothing about. They were also making it sound like they were going to deport natural-born children. There's a big difference between the dreamers and the children that were born here to illegal parents. They were making it sound like they were going to do that. They weren't drawing a distinction. So a bunch of really, really bad reporting was taking place today on this decision by the Trump administration.
DACA is essentially gone. But here's the thing that I think was excellent in terms of Donald Trump's decision. As you rightly point out, he is not throwing out people. That's physically impossible. That can't be done. Now, can you winnow people out? Of course you can, especially when they come in contact with law enforcement. That's an issue for another day. But finally, what he's done is he said, let's throw it back to one branch of government, the legislative, and let's take it off the executive order list, and let's have you guys in the House and the Senate. You're going to make the decision on this, not me. What the hell is wrong with that?
You know, I'll sum this up. You have, during the Nixon administration, you had Richard Nixon, who was trying, with a lot of the orders and stuff that he was doing, he was trying to take power away from the federal government. He was trying to take the decisions out of the hands of the members of Congress. And he was rightly criticized for that. And, of course, Congress stood up and stopped that. Now you're seeing just the opposite. Donald Trump is being criticized for taking this decision and putting it back in the hands of the very people that should be making the decision.
Absolutely correct. And it gets down to this, and this is what I've said for years. If you don't like the system, come out of your shell and change it. But just letting people do what they will willy-nilly, if you don't like the laws, change the laws. But the leftists, and to a great degree the Republicans, don't have the spine to change the laws the way they really would like to write the laws. So the challenge is back. The ball is back in their court. So, folks, that's it. That's the end of the show. Dan Butcher, thank you ever so kindly for being here in the saloon tonight. I got to say thank you ever so much, sir.
Man, you know what? It was a lot of fun. I owed you a couple of shows, and I think we made up for it tonight, buddy. I appreciate it, man. This was a fast 2 hours, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a great time. Folks, you've been listening to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame, and we'll have Dan back again. I'm really glad for his insight in terms of Hurricane Harvey, etc. And we'll be back. I will be back on the Sackheads radio show, and that's going to be tomorrow night at the same time. That'll be at 8 o'clock on the left coast, at 11 o'clock on the right coast. And so, folks, thank you ever so much. And I say good night. Listen to Sackheads tomorrow night, and then I will be back Thursday night, 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Folks, really enjoyed it. Have a great night.
Monsieur has unlocked.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you have been listening to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show on the SHR Media Network, also on HP High Plains Pundit Radio. You want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at BZepp, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. And I actually have an email, bz@shrmedia.com. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at ReverbNation.com. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Tiaras by My Little Pony. And thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team. Thanks for listening. God bless. Take care. You folks, be safe. Go CP time.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canic, superior firearms.
Este podcast é patrocinado pela Wise, o aplicativo para realizar transações em outras moedas. Está enviando ou gastando dinheiro no exterior? Taxas ocultas podem estar levando uma parte. É por isso que você deve usar a Wise. Você obtém a moeda que precisa, onde precisa, por menos. Pague com um toque em pesos em Cancún. Transfira dólares com facilidade para Dallas. A Wise sempre oferece a taxa de câmbio real, como a que você vê no Google, o que significa que você gastará menos com taxas e mais do seu dinheiro chegará onde você precisa. Junte-se a milhões de clientes que gerenciam seu dinheiro com a Wise. Baixe o aplicativo Wise hoje mesmo ou visite wise.com. Termos e condições aplicáveis.